Too fast. So it doesn't annoy everyone. Where am I? Where am I? I don't know. Hi. I'm not sure who's on there. I can't see anything as of yet. Let's see. There I am. With my eyes closed. Hi, Diana. Hi, Wanda. Kill the volume. How's everybody doing? Hi, Gail. Nice to see you. Thank you all for joining me today. Very late. Got my brakes fixed. All good. Hi, Stacy. I did get my, hi, face. I did get my thank you cards. My magic mirror. No. I need a magic mirror. I need a tech-savvy teenager to come help me hook up my phone so I can watch Disney Plus on my television. I can't figure it out. Went to Target and got a Chromecast, and I don't know if it's because it's an older version. Can't get it to work. I thought it was tech-savvy, but I know enough to kind of mess things up and not know how to fix them. Hi, Adrian. I'm going to tell you one thing right now. I really want to open this or this because when I'm stressing, I just want to eat. And these kind of coincidentally, I think I told you this before, I had them when it was winter, so they're all melted into like one gigantic pumpkin. Hi, Carol. Thank you for stopping in from snowy Michigan. Oh, I'm a little jealous. It's really cold here today. It's 23, but no snow. So anyway, I would just pop one, just do it. I don't want to chew while I'm on here because I think that would be rude because I can't share it with you guys and I am getting hangry, so I might be a very weird chewer. But anyway, a couple things real quick. Paper Pumpkin, there is a kit coming out. You already can subscribe for it now through December 10th. It is called Something for Everyone. It has a lot of sentiments in it. Apparently it's going to be a very widespread sort of paper pumpkin kit. Also, you can order the trimmer, which I believe I did say before. You can order the trimmer. Everyone's able to order, just not demonstrators, so it's available for everyone. One other thing I wanted to share with you. What was the other thing? I can't remember what it was now. I should have written a list, but anyway. Oh, I did make this really adorable box yesterday, if you missed it, on YouTube. And I made one for my friend Rhonda, but I didn't want to share it. I made it actually out of the birds, believe it or not. It was really, really cute. It's a very simple box. So anyone who orders from me this month with $50 order, you'll get the tutorial to make this. So it's really simple, but it's a square box. Fits a lot of stuff in it. I did it with a little bit of a different theme. I know we have a lot of Christmas stuff going on now, so this you could use for any time. And I did pitch the ideas for the online card classes with my club on Friday, and they all sounded really into it, so I'm going to test it out on them. That way I can get all the kinks out, and then when I get it all situated, I think I'm going to probably shoot for January starting it. That way I can make sure if there's new stuff we can use versus what it is that I would like to use. So pay attention for that. I probably will have to bill through PayPal, so if you don't have a PayPal account, that's how I would have to do the billing. Also, I'm going to do the paper share again and the ribbon share for the 2020 occasions / spring catalog. So that means you will get one of every single Designer Series paper and or one of every ribbon in the catalog that's going to be coming out in the spring. So I did kind of put something on Facebook this morning for interest to see if people are interested, but it's a great way to get all of the papers and the ribbons in your hand. When I did the ribbons, this was my share because I counted myself in, so yours will look a lot nicer. I have them all wrapped. Same thing with the paper. I'll show you right here. I actually cut all the paper and then I put it in this little pack. It'll have a sticker on it with the name of the paper, the order number, the colors that go with it. So it is a little intensive for me to do because I make sure that I put all the stuff on there so you guys know what you're getting. Also makes it simple for reordering. So I will be doing that as well. So what we will do today is I wanted to do a new version of, and I'm just going to show you what I did, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do this one or not, but I love Spotsylvania. I don't know, for some reason that reminds me of Transylvania, which is fantastic. Oh, you don't have a demonstrator anymore? Close. Well, I'll be happy to share something with you. So here's the one I came up with. I actually made this one. This is on tissue paper, in case you can't see. I made one a while ago, if you guys remember, and this is what I found when I was cleaning up. I did this with the horse. So I thought it would be kind of neat to do it with the unicorn, so I made Rhonda a card with that. I will post the picture now that I've actually given her the card. So I made this with the Leave a Little Sparkle, which was really cute. I just used the markers to color it in. And I will put this one together since I already colored it, but I thought it'd be fun to do maybe a Christmas tree one. So I'm going to do one Christmas tree one, and we're going to actually color it in. One thing you have to remember when you do this, actually two things. What you're going to do is you're going to stamp your image in Memento ink, and you want to make sure you let it dry, and then you're going to color. You can color on the opposite side of it, because that way it kind of gives you the options. If you want it a little darker, you put the face side up. If you want it a little bit more muted, you could put the colored side down, but you want to make sure it's dry. That's one of the most important parts of this. So I am going to, real quick before let me make sure, because I have some stamp sets here that I was thinking of using. I was thinking of using the tree from The Most Wonderful Time, only because it's open, so it has a lot of space to be able to color. So I think I'm going to do one with the tree, and then the other one I thought would be really cute to do would be the snowman. So I'm going to do those two, and then I actually will assemble this one because I already did it with the unicorn. And I think I'm going to need to take off my flannel shirt now that I'm in the house, because I was sitting at the car dealership for 2 hours, which was quite toasty. I shouldn't say toasty. It was freezing in there because people kept going in and out. And like I said, it's like 23 degrees here this morning. So another one you could do that would be really cool, just for ideas in case you don't have it, is the birds. You could do the birds with the crinkle paper. But this is called, I think, a Faux Linen Technique. So pretty simple. Let me move this stuff out of the way. And then I'm going to move my scrap paper over here. And then I'm going to flip you guys, but I want to move it before I move this stuff out before I flip you. Okay, so if anybody gets a little sick, just look away for a minute. I'll tell you when. I'm going to turn you here so you're looking at my pens. Let me pop you out. This is always the hardest part because, oh, sorry about that. I always feel like I'm going to do it the wrong way. All right, we are facing down. So anybody that was nauseated or would be nauseated, myself included, so I do feel your pain on that. Ooh, just pinched my finger. I tell you, I am having a day today. I think the one thing that made me the most upset was that darn Chromecast thing didn't work. I thought that was the answer to all my prayers. Okay, so what you need for this is just some tissue paper. So I did this one the other day. I did a couple of them. Hers I actually did with the larger unicorn from Leave a Little Sparkle. So we'll do this one. I keep calling all the unicorns, I call Morgan, because that was a unicorn. Man, I really pinched my finger. Got a blood blister. Woof. Morgan was the unicorn in some of my books. So we'll do one with the tree for Most Wonderful Time, and we'll do one with the little snowman here, only because I think it might be cute. You could even do this one, but I'm going to do this guy. So we'll do these two. What you need for this is just some tissue paper. So just any old tissue paper. And I'm not even really going to cut this. I'm just going to kind of rip this tissue paper for now. And you do need to have paper that's going to be as large. So I will say to err on the side of caution, because I didn't pre-cut this, I'm just going to stamp it in the center, which is going to look a little ridiculous the way I do it. But you're going to stamp it in the center, and that way you have room to trim it up. So here is the tree and the snowman. And I think the cool part about this, the reason that I picked this, and I told you guys that I knew I was going to be on at a weird time today, but I wanted to share it because I thought this would be a really fun idea to maybe use for some of your stamp sets that you either haven't used in a while, or you haven't really made something that you thought you wanted to make with them. So I'm going to grab my Memento ink, and I'm going to do one at a time. I will just do the snowman first. And I do have a pad underneath of this white Easy Clean matte. So you do need some sort of a pad when you're stamping with photopolymer, but just in case you were wondering what I was doing. One other thing, this does go through the tissue paper because obviously it's only tissue paper, so you might want to have some sort of a little scrap underneath there. So I'm just going to kind of stamp this. I know this is crinkled, but it doesn't really matter because you're going to crinkle it anyway. I'm just going to stamp this right like that. Okay, so there's one. So I'm going to set this to dry. You can see how much it went through. And then we'll do the other one with the tree. You want to make sure that your memento is nice and inked. That's one important thing. But you don't want it to be goopy. So see how that looks there? Pretty goopy. And I probably should have re-wet this ahead of time, but I forgot. I'm actually going to wipe this off because if you make it goopy, and I should have saved the one I goofed up the other day, it makes your image really muddy when you go to color it. So you want to make sure that it's not goopy. So don't over ink it. So I'm just going to... So just kind of lightly pressing. It might take you a little bit more to fill the ink in. But don't do any twisting on this one. Just kind of rotate your stamp. Seems to work better. Okay. Hi, Anka. Ron and I were just talking about you recently. Anka is watching, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not very good with my countries, but from Netherlands. All right, so you can see that one went through as well. So I'm just going to give these a moment to dry. And Anka is going to be coming to the United States, I believe, soon. So I hope to see you when you visit. Better late than never. No worry, Kathleen. We kind of started just on a late impromptu note here anyway. All right, so since I did the tree second, I'm going to do the snowman first. So again, one other thing I told you that you could do to be safe is we stamped this way. So I'm going to actually color on the other side. And that's not a problem because you can use either side. Just depends on which one you like better. You can use your alcohol markers or your blends. But to be honest with you, I think your, I'm sorry, alcohol markers are blends. Your alcohol markers or your Stampin' Right markers. But you want to be gentle because this paper does tear very easily. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to just stick with my regular Stampin' Right marker. So I'm going to do some Pool Party just to kind of give a little bit of a, more of a white hue to him. Not a whole lot, just a little bit to kind of brighten him up. So I do just a little under here, a little near the buttons. And let's see, I'm going to go with Mango for his carrot nose. Much easier. You can layer colors on this, but you really just need to make sure that you're careful. That's the biggest thing. I know it sounds kind of ridiculous, but I forgot to add a little bit down here at the snow. You do have to be a little bit careful with this, only because the paper does rip fairly easily, because it is only tissue paper. So for his hat, I'm going to go with something bright. So I'm going to do Real Red. Actually, instead of Real Red, I'm going to do Poppy, because that's kind of like a bright but a little bit orangish red. So Poppy Parade. Kind of make that like a candy cane. And I don't think it's going to be too much because it's Christmassy. So I'm going to go with Granny Apple Green for his scarf. And I'm going to do the same thing. Just kind of do every other. I'm hoping my head's not in the way. I don't think it is. Nope. Okay, so there we have that. While I'm at it, I'm going to add just a little bit of shaded spruce kind of to the tree so it kind of sticks out that way. Even though we're not really coloring because it is pretty black, it'll give that little green halo to the tree. Let's see what else. We could kind of do the same thing similarly, but I'm going to go with a little bit lighter for his arms, which are twigs. So I'm just going to take, this is soft suede. Just kind of go outside just a little. Doesn't have to be a lot, but. All right. And I'm going to do a little bit of balmy blue around the snowflakes. Probably should have done a little bit of something with his hat too. I guess the other thing that you could do that would be really neat for this, and I don't know because I haven't tried it, is maybe after you finish it, because you'll have the glue there, you could add like a little bit of dazzling diamonds or something. That might be kind of neat. All right, so here is our snowman. As you can see, he is pretty light. And if you want him lighter, you can do the other side. It'll be a little bit more muted, but I'm just going to set him on the side for now. So put him over here. And then we'll switch to our tree. So again, this was the ink side up, so I'm flipping it over. I know it looks very lopsided. So with the tree, I'm going to try to bring in a couple different colors of green. So I have Granny Apple. I'll do Shaded Spruce and a little bit of Garden Green. So I'm going to try to find, I'm not really great sometimes at making highlights or lowlights. And it also kind of depends on where you're going to say your light's coming from. So if we say the light is coming from this side would be lighted. The other side, underside would be darker. So I'm going to do the light first. So I'm just going to bring in, just put some, kind of spreading it all over. I'm not really being very specific, but I'm also trying just to make sure when I'm holding, I'm not pressing really hard. I'm pressing lightly. And hopefully, I'm trying to fill this in enough that I don't have to go over it too many times, because I've found that one thing with the tissue paper is when you go over it a lot is when it tends to rip because it's more wet. So then I'm going to come in with the Garden Green and just kind of bring in next to where I've gone, just bring in a little bit of dark. Making sure, once again, I'm trying to make sure my head's not in the way. So this isn't yet my darkest color because I still do have the Shaded Spruce. So, and also remember, regardless of which way you do this, you're going to be crumpling up the paper anyway. So it's going to be much more forgiving than you might think it looks right now, which I don't know. It might be a little far out for you guys to see, but add just a little bit to the outer edges. So I'm kind of just adding a little bit of, what would you call it, like a branch pop out here just by going out the edge a little bit with the tip of my marker. So I'm just kind of adding a little bit of a wispiness. And I think depending on what handed you are is makes it maybe a little bit easier on one side versus the other. So finally, Shaded Spruce. So I'm hoping this turns out the way I've planned, because as always, the only one I did was that unicorn card. So I don't really have a tree card to compare this to. So I'm just going around and adding some darker spots with the Shaded Spruce. In a couple of areas it is starting to get a little bit wilty or wimpy, probably just from the overload of ink. So I'm just trying to be really, really careful with this. And I think you probably get best control if you use your markers versus using an ink pad. Not sure how you would do this with an ink pad. You could do it with a blender pen, but I don't know how easy it would be. And then one final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in just with some Pear Pizzazz, and if I see anything that's white, I'm going to just try to cover it up. So I'm using the very whole part of my brush tip here. That way I can cover a lot of area without a lot of touching. So that's going to be good for now. I don't want to do too much more than that. I'm going to bring just a little bit here on the side. I don't know. This one could be a total disaster, so we will see. All right. So I ended up using, at the end, that was Pear Pizzazz, but the main colors were Granny Apple Green, Garden Green, and Shaded Spruce. So there is our tree. And as you can see, when you do the other side, it always ends up being a little bit lighter. So I'm going to start with the unicorn card first, because that one I know is fully dry. So you have this unicorn piece here, and you want to kind of make sure whatever piece you're going to mount it onto, that this is larger than. This is a little small because when you crinkle it, it's going to get a little bit smaller. So I'm going to trim this down just a hair. I feel like this is probably 3.5, yep, by 4.5. So I'm going to take it down to 3 by 4. That way when I crinkle this up, I have more room. So here's one. So 3 by 4. So here's what we're going to do for this one. We're going to take our unicorn and we're going to just crinkle it up. You don't have to be rough with it, but you want to make sure that it gets a lot of crinkles. You can kind of open it back up gently. And then just the same thing again, just crinkle it in different spots. Kind of like what we did when we did our military card last week, because you're just wanting to pick up some bumps in the paper. So there's that. So then you kind of smooth it out just a little. You don't want it to be completely flat. I'll smooth it out a little bit. So I want to look at this one to see which way I stamped it. So I stamped her this way. So this is going to be the softer side. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this onto my silicone mat just for sake of trying to be slightly neater. And I'm going to take my liquid glue, which of course all of these have been facing the other direction. This is the one time when you want to have a little bit more of the glue. So I'm just going to take my glue. You could probably do it with the other side. You probably don't have to do this side, but you do want to make sure, whichever way you do it, that you get to the corners. So I kind of squirted some out and then I'm spreading it around with the bigger part here. Make sure you get all the way to the edge, because the edges are going to be the part that give it away if you don't get it on there right. So then you're going to take your piece and kind of carefully just set it where you think you want it and press. You don't want it smooth. You kind of want it bumpy. Okay, and then whatever wrinkles are there, just press it down gently. Try to keep your fingers, if you can, glue free, because if you get glue on here, it'll rip the paper when it comes back up. But that's all you want to do. So you're going to just lift this up. Oops. Make sure that it's pressed down. Again, you do want wrinkles because it's supposed to look like linen when it's done, which it does look pretty neat. So for now, I'm going to set this one on the side. And then I'm going to grab, let me see, where's my white? I'm going to grab another Whisper White panel. Let's see. I don't think this necessarily needs to be too huge. So this is just a regular quarter cardstock panel. So this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down. So we'll say this is going to be 3 1/4. I'm going to cut this down to, so 3 and 3 would be 6. So this is going to be just a little bit too small. Let me just go with a full sheet. And while I'm at it, since I have the choice and I grabbed this one, I'm going to use thick Whisper White for this piece this time. We're going to see what it looks like. So I want 4 inches by, oops, 3. Actually, I'm going to do 3 1/4. So 3 1/4 by 4. That's working. Okay. So I have one piece here. Oh my goodness. Sorry, people are always calling me. So here is this piece here. Same thing again. So I'm just putting my glue down, and then I'm going to use this other side to spread it. Again, making sure you go all the way to the edge. Okay. And I'm going to do the snowman first, okay? So I'm just going to kind of rip some of this off. Oop, that might have got a little too rippy. Crinkle it up. Miss Pinton, you better get to work. Same thing again. All right, so that's fairly wrinkly. So again, this was the part that we colored. So if you want it lighter, you can flip it over. It's not really honestly specific. You kind of do whichever you want. Now, since I ripped this a little bit here at the bottom, I'm trying to center him a little bit lower. And I do want it to be centered, so maybe I'll put a sentiment up top instead. So I'm just going to press him down. See if I can fix that little piece. And if you have like wrinkles in it that it's kind of overlapped, it's okay. I guess you would sort of want your image to be a little bit smoother, but it's supposed to have a linen aged look. So make sure you get it all the way to the edge and just use your fingers to press. Again, if you somehow you miss an edge, just go back in, add a teeny bit of liquid glue, smush it around, and just make sure you get it to the edge. That's probably the most important rule of this, is making sure you get the paper to the edge. So there's another one. So I'm going to let that sit on the side. And then I like using the silicone mat too, because you can just rub the glue off. It comes off pretty easily. So in the interest of not actually ripping this one, I'm going to try to cut this down just a smidge. Just like that. All right. Oh, thank you, Pam. I appreciate that. I actually need to do them over again. Since I'm going away, I'm going to take them off and redo them so they're a little more colored to the ends, let's say. Because they're starting to get a little worn. Guess when you do a lot of stuff with your hands, that tends to happen. But that's also why I do my nails at home, so I don't feel bad about the fact that I probably have to change my polish every 3 days. I think I made it 4 this time, so. Actually, this is 5. That's pretty long for me. Okay, so there is that. Now my tree, remember, I kind of stamped this a little cockeyed, so I'm going to try to center it. It probably isn't going to look centered. But same thing again, go ahead and ball this up. The more you crinkle it, the more it will have that kind of linen-ish look to it. All right, so I only know that this is flipped because I remember I did nicer lines on the one side versus the other. So this one I'm going to try to put a little bit higher. So again, just kind of eyeballing it. That way I'll maybe have a sentiment at the bottom instead. So just pressing down. Again, making sure you really push to the edges. And if you have any edges that don't have glue, just go ahead back in with your liquid glue. And press it down. That's pretty good there. This one was definitely gappy over here. Okay, so there's that one. So that looks pretty nice. So I'm going to go back in. So that's this one. I'm going to give that one a second. I'm going to go back in now to the unicorn. Rhonda, by the way, in case you're still on there, I was sharing that I made you this card the other day. So I'm going to take my scissors and just trim the excess off. If you wanted to, you could tape the back and wrap this around. If you were worried that you didn't tape your edges well enough, that's another thing you could do. But I think for the most part, most of these at this point, I've glued them fairly well, so I'm pretty confident with how they look. Now, one other thing you can do for this kind of depends. You do want to make sure you let this dry. So if you're going to do this part, make sure you let it dry. But I'm going to go ahead and just do this only because I have this pad handy and it's a pretty light color. I'm going to do this with just a very light bit of purple posy and just kind of sponge the edges. Now, normally if you're doing this with a linen card, you would do it with either maybe crumb cake or Sahara sand. But since I ended up mounting this onto purple, I thought it was kind of neat just to do it with purple. So just kind of touching very gently all over just to give that old-ish look to it. Now, when I do these two, since they're Christmas, even though they're pretty bright, I'm going to do it with Sahara sand. So there's that one. So I'll just take this, flip it over. Same thing again. You're just going to cut the edges. Now, actually for this one, what I'll do is I'll do it differently. So for this one, I'm going to do is I'll take snail and I'm going to put it on the back and I will actually wrap this and then I'll just trim off the excess. That way, in case, I've never done one this way, but in case you might feel like you need to do it this way, so you just bring it around. Same with this. We'll do both sides. And then you can wrap this around. And then we'll just kind of trim the excess off. All right. Now, anything that you would have sticking out, obviously you would want to do a really good job of trimming for the sake of trying not to be too long-winded, I'm trimming rather quickly. But then you'll have that. Okay, so there's another. That's with the wraparound. And then for this one, I'm going to go back to the tree. I'm going to just trim this one up. So just trimming along with my scissors. You do want to make sure everything is nice and dry if you're going to sponge it, only because you don't want it to rip or stick to the sponge. So that's one thing. Right here, I have a little teeny piece where it came up. So same thing again, you can just take your liquid glue, kind of stick this down, and just press just like that. So you could do that if you have any little whoopsies. All right, so there is that. Now I'm going to grab a fresh sponge. That doesn't mean it's new, it's just clean, hopefully. And I'm going to grab the Sahara Sand ink. And I'm going to be light with this, okay? And I'm just going to just sponge the edge. So if you're into maybe like an antique look for Christmas cards, this will be a great way to do it. Again, you do want to make sure that it's dry. So what you could do is you could maybe stamp a bunch of these images, let them dry. Then you could color a bunch of them, let them dry. You could adhere them, let them dry. You know, like while you're watching television, you could let some of this happen. So, and I'm trying not to sponge a whole lot on the snowman. That way he kind of sticks out in color. All right, so same thing again on the tree. And if you don't like this, you could completely skip this step because it does still look like linen, even though it's not. This is, I guess, more of like an antique linen. So I have a couple bubbles that I'm noticing here. So again, make sure you really are not being cheap with your adhesive, because you do want it to stick. You really want it to stick, because if not, it's going to come off. And this is one of those times where you don't want to be cheap with the adhesive, because believe me, and I am speaking from experience, there are many a card that I put together and am now kind of wishing that I would have been a little bit more generous with my adhesive. But there's the three. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to mount these. So I'm going to do these two kind of more in Christmas something. This one is just going to be a very neutral card. So I'm going to pick out one of the colors that I used for the background, and I'm fairly certain I used Lovely Lipstick for the flowers there on the unicorn's head. So I'm going to add that one. Oh, that'll be really pretty. Sure, little girl will love that one. I'm going to do that one, and then I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do Garden Green for the tree. No, you know what I pulled out? Let's see what shade of spruce looks like. This was kind of an accident. That kind of looks pretty, and we'll add a little bit of a layer of crumb cake to that one. And then for the snowman, I will do Balmy Blue. So this one I'm going to have to cut. And I'm going to add some sort of another layer. Just not 100% sure which one yet. So let me trim this in half. So full sheet, this is Balmy Blue, scoring it at 5.5, and then I'm going to cut it at 4 1/4. So that will be for him. I wanted to cut down a little piece of crumb cake for the tree. And since it's kind of an unusual size here, I think we ended up saying we did like 3 1/4 by 4. I'm just gonna mat it so it so it's a little bit bigger. So I'll do 4 1/4 by 3 1/2. See if hopefully I cut that correctly. There we go. So that looks cute. And then I'm gonna punch out behind that. We're gonna do something real quick with the sentiment. Actually, I have this little piece here. I might even be able to use that. For this one, I'm going to bring in, might be cute to do a piece of, ooh, sparkly. But you know what we're going to do for this one? For that one, we're going to keep it plain. Here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to take the snowflakes and we're going to make this one. We're going to do this one very simple. So we'll do like 3 different levels. So for this one, we're going to do the snowflake that's in Let It Snow. Let me just hit this with the bone folder. And I'm going to bring out my balmy blue. And we're just going to stamp snowflakes. Well, now is when that piece of scrap paper would come in handy. Probably already somehow made it to the recycle bin, knowing me here. Let's see. And then there also are these other little things. They're like, they kind of look like a snowflake and then like, I don't want to say like the coal, but I'm just going to take these and kind of fit them in between. That way there's something else just to fill in the space there. They don't all even have to be first generation ink. You could do some of them stamped off. So I'm avoiding the center because I know he's going to fit right there in the middle. So we'll just do that. So that's going to be for him. I'm going to leave this out because I don't know what sentiment we're going to use for that one. For the unicorn, I'm going to just use these little swirls. So I'm going to do something similar, but for this one, instead of getting the ink, I'll just show you the difference if you were to just do this with Versamark. So let me just grab my Versamark pad. So I just have the swirl here from the same stamp set. You fold this in half. And the cool part is this just goes to show you, you could do this for any occasion. It doesn't have to be Christmas. This could be a birthday card. Kind of just making the swirl be almost like a frame. There you go for that. And I am still going to add something behind this one because I feel like it needs just a little bit of something. So I'm going to keep this out just for a second. So we have, maybe I'll do a Flirty Flamingo. Just a little Flirty Flamingo layer. Nope, that's not Flirty Flamingo. Oh my goodness. Somebody didn't put her paper back the way she was supposed to because they are all sorts of out of order. Let's see what this looks like. It's a little too thin and this already has a score mark in it, so I'm just going to use one of these little trimmed up pieces. So same thing again for this one. I'm going to trim this down to, I said 4, so 4 1/4. That would be this way. Just going to do 3 1/4. So this should fit perfectly. Let's see. That's nice. Okay, so I'm going to leave that. And then I'm going to go back with this one. And I'm going to get my Flirty Flamingo ink. So kind of like for a repetitive pattern, except I do need my scrap paper. Here it is. Because this one I'm going to do differently. I'm going to do this one coming diagonally. Just flipping it around occasionally. And quite honestly, this really isn't a lot because you got to think of this. We're doing 3 totally different cards. So then we'll have that little swirl. And I know you're not going to see a lot of it, which is fine. But those little swirls, and then it'll be sitting on top of these little swirls. So just a little something. So that's that one. And then the other thing I said I wanted to do for this tree was to add some sort of a sentiment, but I was going to cut it from underneath. So I'm going to just grab real quick one of my... Oh, this actually might even be cute. Let's see what this fits in. It's a little too small. That is going to be tight, whether or not it's going to fit in there. How about we'll do that? We're going to trim. Let me see if there's one that's a little bit smaller. Only because I have these bird ballard. Let me flip this over and see. That's just a tiny bit too small. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim a piece out of the center with this size up. I'm going to stamp this one on this smaller one. I'm going to see. I might not end up using that part of it, but I'm going to see what it looks like instead. Just for the heck of it. All right, so I'm going to cut these both at the same time. So I'm going to do the Hope You Have a Wonderful Christmas. And I'm going to do this. I know it sounds a little crazy, but I'm going to do it in black. Only that way it will stand out. And let me just grab my memento. From Cold, Iowa. Thank you, everybody, for all the comments. I promise, I do usually go back and catch them after the fact, if I haven't already. That is a little bit over inked, so let me clean this off. And here it is. Better. Okay. So I'm going to cut this just kind of out of the center. And what did I do with the other one? I had the size down. Here's this. Here's this. Here it is. I'm going to cut these two out with the Big Shot. And I'm going to center the one kind of down just in case I don't really like it. In case it's a little too large. And I'll show you what I mean when I bring it over. So what I did was, instead of putting this, which I kind of put it a little bit off, instead of putting this so it was centered, I kind of tried to do it, but I think when I moved it, it moved. I tried to do it so it would be in the top. That way if I wanted to cut it, I could. So I have to see if I goofed this one up when I did it. And you know what? We can add something to it to kind of make up for it. So this is the inside. So now, instead of having that whole piece covered up, we're going to cover this up. We'll use this for our sentiment. You can trim this down a little bit and add something to it. What I would have liked to have done, and I'm actually going to cut this in half right where I am, is I would have centered it just a little bit over, and then I could have added something to it. We do have lots of cute little embellishments though with that, so I don't really like the way I did that. So I'm going to do it one more time. Just because centering wasn't great. This is going to be one of the ones where I'm going to tell you. Sometimes if you just don't like the way it's stamping also, just take your stamp cleaning pad, kind of clean it off. I usually will use this then in my chamois and wipe it off, and then try re-inking one more time. And sometimes you will just get the nicest, most crisp image. There you go. That's a little better. That's a lot better actually. So I'm going to recut this one out just real quick, and I'm going to see if I can do a better job of centering this. And I'm probably going to have to put a piece of washi, and then I'm going to cut this one, and then we'll get that one done. If you remember, the medley this is from actually has a lot of little embellishments. It has stars, so I'm going to use that. Okay. So, let's see. That also comes with the tinsel that comes in that. So if you wanted to, you could even add a little bit of that to your tree, which would be cute, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to grab the other part. This also has a really nice die that goes with it. You could use for your sentiment there as well. So I'm going to add one of those to this. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put this one together. Put this on top like that. I am going to put this on with snail. You could, if you were worried about how it sits, put it on with liquid glue. That would be perfectly fine as well. A little piece here that came up. But again, just make sure you let it dry. That's probably the most important thing that you could do for this whole situation. Make sure everything is dry. Okay. And then for this one, I had a couple of them here, but oh, Lord knows where they went. I'll put this up with dimensionals. You could put a star on top of the tree. Might be almost a little bit big, so I want to bring it down here just a smidge. But you could put a star on top of the tree, which I think is what I'm going to do. I was originally thinking I would put a star somewhere around here, but I think it's just trying to make sure he's straight. Cute, just like that. So that's got a little smudge on there. That's pretty cute. You could always add some other ones on there as well. You could add something to the bottom here with these stars, but I don't want to overkill it because I feel like sometimes I don't know when enough is enough. For this one, because I have the all that extra taped part down there, I'm actually going to just pop this whole thing up with dimensionals, but I'm going to try to do it in a way that I'm not going to pull on the edge of the paper. I'm going to put one in the middle there. I feel like if I put them on the corners, just the way I cut it, it might end up pulling up. So that's why I'm putting these on the side. But let me make sure this opens correctly. There's that little guy. You can add a little sentiment to him as well. And then the last one, which is the unicorn. So I'm going to, because this is a little bit curly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put this one down with liquid glue. Just to show that it still does work pretty well. There's that. Kind of also lets you maneuver it a little bit. That's why I like the liquid glue. Give it a second to hold. The cool thing about this, if you look at it this way, it almost does look like a little portrait of the unicorn. So you could put it at like a little bit askew, which I think is kind of neat. But this one also is a different opening card. So that's just the side like this. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to put this one just a little bit off at an angle. If nothing else, my niece, you guys remember her, she was always putting everything on at like a sideways slant. She would appreciate this. I'm not sure how much she actually does or doesn't love unicorns, but really cute. And then you could add a nice sentiment, happy birthday. This one has some cute sentiments as well. Leave a little sparkle, believe, and make your dreams come true. So that's really adorable. I'm going to leave this blank because I may end up using this for a birthday card for someone in Christian's class. You never know. So it was kind of nice that even though the swirls didn't really necessarily cover there, they are showing in different aspects. So this one, you can always add a sentiment after the fact. Same with this one, because this doesn't really have to be a Christmas card. You could do this for New Year's, or someone that has a winter birthday would be a great card as well to be able to get. So let me move this out of the way so I can show you these. Move all this over. So I hope you all enjoyed this today. Again, thank you for joining me at the random odd time it was that I came on today. I appreciate it. I am super excited because Friday morning I will be driving up to Hartford, so I will do my best to share whatever I'm able to with you all once I get there with some fun new stuff, and then I'll have a better handle on how many papers I have to order for the paper share and the ribbon share, and a lot of times they are letting us share a little bit more. So if I'm able to share anything with you guys once I get there, I absolutely will. So stay tuned for me to randomly go live there. And again, if you are a demonstrator and we have chatted on here, be sure that you say hi. I would love to meet you in person. So thank you guys very, very much for joining. If you'd like to get any of the products to make these cards as well, you can hit my online store, which is rachthestamper.stampinup.net. I would love if you would follow along. Thank you guys all for the comments and the hearts. If you haven't already and you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, I know we're still live right now on Facebook, but if you hit the bell, it will tell you when I have a new video. So you have to subscribe. I would love for you to share this with your friends. Leave me a comment. I truly appreciate all of the love and share. Even if you're not buying anything, leave a comment. It helps in me being able to be found easier for those people who are looking for a new demonstrator, or maybe just want some new ideas on how to make cards. But some very different cards here. We have, you know, the unicorn and a snowman and a Christmas tree, but they all are really cool with this technique. Again, this is a faux linen technique. So if you came in late, it's faux linen. We just used some tissue paper and stamped. You can see it's very versatile. You could use it for absolutely anything. You can make it very simple, or you can make it a lot more jazzy. So thank you guys very much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will try and talk to you as soon as I find out some new, hopefully Stampin' Up! Information. So thank you guys for joining. I hope you have a wonderful week.